Welcome to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me today is Stephanie Berkowitz, who is the President and CEO of Northern Virginia Family Service, and George Lane, who is the co-chair of the CARE Awards Advisory Committee. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
So, our viewers may not be familiar with the CARE Awards, even though this is your 26th annual event that's coming up, and what the CARE Awards is designed to do.
Well, we'd love to share. We're really excited. 26 years, 1992 was when the CARE Awards were first developed. CARE stands for Companies as Responsive Employers. And back in 1992, family-friendly workplace policies were the exception, not the norm. So in these 26 years, we've evolved quite a bit to ensure that we are meeting the changing environment, meeting the needs of the workforce coming in, and ensuring that the CARE Awards align with the current environment. Well, back in 1992 at Northern Virginia Family Service, we were seeing the impact of work-related policies on families that we were serving, and they were exacerbating already difficult situations in families' lives. We were seeing increased incidences of substance abuse and families breaking apart, and we said, you know, we need to do something. We know as an organization that communities are stronger when families are stronger, and we know that businesses are stronger when their employees are supported and stronger. So we paused and took the moment to say, how do we elevate those employers that are really investing in their workforce?
I mean, I think it makes sense that when you reward a company for what they're doing, and when you point out that you can do well while you do good,
right,
that it is an example for other businesses to think that they can have working family-friendly policies and still be profitable, still be successful, and still be leaders in the community.
In fact, you can even be more profitable. I think the misconception is that in order to put in policies like this, you have to spend a lot of money on them. And you can spend money on them, and there are companies that do that. But you don't have to spend a lot of money to put in policies that create greater workplace flexibility, that support people with families or people without families. And it does improve your bottom line, although it's probably hard to find that somewhere on the balance sheet. Interestingly, at the time, NVFS was identifying the needs that were emanating from the workplace that were landing on their doorstep. There were several business leaders in the Northern Virginia community that were looking at the issues of businesses becoming more socially responsible. That may not seem like a earth-shattering concept at this point in time, but at that point, it was a fairly progressive notion. So some business leaders that had already done work with Northern Virginia Family Service got together and collaborated, and from that came the CARE Awards.
So what were some of the early things that you were looking at? Like, I was in the workforce back in 1984. Like, I had 3 kids before there was FMLA, right? So I understand what it was to work full-time, to be a working parent. So in 1992, what were the things that we were looking at?
Back in 1992, it was flexible work schedules, offering low costs for your health insurance at work, perhaps greater time off and how you use your time off, things that today are almost taken for granted. And over the last 26 years, the workforce has changed, the business community has changed, and the CARE Award has changed to try to accommodate that and recognize the things that in this environment are still leadership quality and cutting edge.
And I think that's important. We have more millennials in the workforce. I think that has changed the way many companies have chosen to do business, but it's also, there are companies who've decided not to necessarily change to bend to what millennials are looking for. And a lot of them are not homeowners, and they're not married, and they don't have children, but they certainly do have an idea of what they consider work-life balance.
Right. I mean, I think the notion is that you don't have to have a spouse or a partner or children to have needs outside the workforce. So when we say family-friendly workplace policies, we're really getting at work-life balance and trying to make sure that employees are able to take care of the things that they have to do outside the workforce while being engaged and energized to be productive while they're at the workplace. It's not always easy, but creative business minds can come up with ways to do that.
So between 1992 and today, what are some of the newer things that you're looking for in your criteria?
Right, so it's been really one of the most exciting times each year when we celebrate these awards is hearing the innovation and hearing the creativity that companies bring to their employees. We're finding a lot of employee driven, so what's important to me and employers who are actually listening and executing. CARE is really the time where you take your values and you move them into action. So our CARE Award winners are those who are driving action and seeing the differences. This year we have recognized that employees are looking more towards companies that are engaging in socially responsible practices and
Right.
greater levels of and deeper community engagement. So that's been an evolution for us this year, as we're really focusing equally on family-friendly values and flexible workplaces and the integration of the whole self, recognizing that you don't go to work and go home. There's really the intersection these days. And now on top of that, how can we support our employees as they support the community around them?
And the changing workforce, I think, has changed the definition of flexibility. Flexibility has always been an important criterion in determining who should be a CARE Award winner. But consider that now you've got at least 4 generations in the workforce.
Right.
Baby boomers are staying in the workforce
Longer.
longer. You've got millennials coming into the workforce, and then you've got the sandwich generation, people that are somewhere in the
The
middle.
Gen X, I like to call them the Prince Charles generation. They just keep waiting for their turn.
Right, exactly, exactly. And each one of those generations has different needs that translate into flexibility. So it's a real challenge for employers, but again, creative employers can find ways to provide the kind of flexibility that the different factors and the different sections of the workforce are going to require going forward, and perhaps even more so as we continue to move into the next decade.
Well, you've got a varied list. It's quite a long list and a varied list, and all these businesses are engaged in different kinds of services. So their workplaces can't be the same because all of them are engaged in different kinds of industries. But things like telecommuting, you know, one of the things that changed during my lifetime as a working adult is email was the first thing. You know, it used to be you waited for the envelope or you talked to somebody on the phone.
Right.
And then from email, it went to your smartphone, which is it's a double-edged sword. You can work from more places, but you're also working 24/7 in a lot of cases, and
Right.
people expect you to be If you email me at 10 o'clock at night, you kind of expect that you'll hear from me, right? And so I'm not sure how businesses are managing that aspect.
Right, and so much of that is the culture that you create within the organization, and the expectations and the values that prevail.
I mean, you're right. Flexibility does perhaps introduce a heightened level of demands on workers, but that segment of the workforce that requires more flexibility, I think, understands that those demands can be met, and they're not afraid to work hard.
That's right.
Now,
I
okay,
agree
so we're
with you.
talking millennials here. Let's just
Right.
face it. And I think millennials have for a long time gotten a really bad rap that they don't want to work hard, and nothing could be further from the truth. At least from the data that we have found in my company, they want to work hard. They just want to be able to work when they want to work and the way they want to be able to work, because technology has allowed us to do that. Technology has allowed us to be in more than one place at one time. So millennials are thinking, well, why shouldn't we take advantage of that? If I want to go out to a softball game at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and work on my report at 8 o'clock at night, why can't I do that? And I think they understand that just because they may be emailing somebody at 10 o'clock at night, they're not expecting to hear back at 10 o'clock at night, but they're getting the work out. So I think employers have to adapt what expectations they place on their employees, and how they expect the work to get done, and how they're going to deliver it to their clients if they have clients.
And I think millennials, too, have been the driving force behind social responsibility. They care about, you know, the things that their companies invest in the fact that a lot of employers are now encouraging their employees to volunteer their time, sometimes during the workday, sometimes as a team.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, I sat on the board of Bright Paths, and we recently moved our offices, and there's a photo of all these Acumen employees in their Acumen blue t-shirts. There must have been a dozen of them that came to help with the move. And I think this community identity is employees of a certain company working together to provide services in the community is something that's really embraced by millennials.
Absolutely, and we're seeing more and more of that even embraced at all levels of the organization. When we partner with the community, with the corporate community, dozens and dozens of incredible companies in this, hundreds of incredible companies, they're always coming to us asking, how can we engage at the next level? How can we get our employees more involved? Do you have opportunities for folks to come out as individuals, as groups, and team building opportunities? And more, they are happening during the day. These are things that are sanctioned during the work day. They get their T-shirts, they come out as a team, they're excited, they can't wait to engage, and then to keep coming back.
And Stephanie just mentioned the perfect word there, engage. Employers are looking for that special sauce that creates that level of engagement. And that's one of the ways to do it, is to put themselves out there as a company that stands for something. I think millennials in particular, more so than any other segment of the workforce, are looking for meaning in their work. In fact, what is it, 77% or 75% of millennials have said they would take a job for a company that stands for something. And the rest of the workforce is about 55% that they would do that and take less pay to do so.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, I am hearing and seeing the same things. People will say, I would make less to have a better quality of life.
Exactly.
Right.
So
Have
companies that can find that level of engagement, that's the holy grail. That's what they're looking for. And
well, then the retention rates are far greater, which means the cost to the companies go down.
Yeah, because you don't see the cost of a turnover. And I used to work in human resources many years ago, and I used to say if there was only a line item on a P&L for what it costs you to churn employees that are there from like 1 to 5 years.
Right.
Constantly retrain, constantly bring people on, constantly you lose productivity, it impacts morale, but there's not a line item that tells you the cost of turnover.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. You can't necessarily pinpoint it on your balance sheet, but it's there. I mean, the data suggests that replacing somebody, depending upon the type of job that it is, obviously, can cost you anywhere from 1/2 to 3 times what that person's annual salary is for that role. Making a 1 or 2% difference in your turnover rate can have a huge impact on your bottom line, and the smart companies get that. And they're looking, it not only affects their financial data, their financial bottom line, but now companies are looking at what we refer to as the triple bottom line. It's financial, it's environmental, and social.
And I want to talk about that more when we come back from this break, so please join us after the break.
So there you are, shuffling through a stack of resumes, and you come to mine. This is it, first impression, my way in. But can my resume show you how I truly stand out? Like that I was studying, going to night school while working 2 jobs just to help my parents pay for groceries. Or being the first one to always step up. No, that's something you just can't put on paper. Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent that is dedicated, hardworking, and determined like me.
Where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack.
Tommy?
Go get him.
Don't stop. Keep playing. Here we go. Here's the fun part.
Did you do this?
Great job.
Encouragement. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
I surrender, I surrender.
Welcome back to Your Need to Know. I'm your host, Catherine Reed, and joining me today is Stephanie Berkowitz, who is the President and CEO of Northern Virginia Family Service, and George Lane, who is the co-chair of the CARE Awards Advisory Committee. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So, George, you have actually been here from the very beginning, 26 years of experience
Yeah.
in determining who these award winners are. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, actually, as the head of the advisory committee, I've tried to keep an arm's length relationship between me and the people that are reviewing applications and visiting companies, because I don't want, we have 3 or 4 different teams that are going out to do this, and I don't want to be involved in anyone and create the appearance of favoritism because of my involvement. We've got a core of volunteers, and I should give them a plug.
Absolutely.
This committee is entirely a volunteer committee. And the application and review process and the site visits that we do are extremely time consuming at a very busy time for people, most of whom are in HR. So a shout out to the advisory committee, to the nominations committee for their work. But the process is three parts. There's an application, written application. After that, that's followed up by an employee survey, and there are cuts at each part of the process. So if you get past the written application, then you go to the employee survey, and then at that point, we do a site visit where we attempt to meet with company executives and interview employees directly, just to make sure that everything that we've seen and heard from the application and the survey pans out with the environment at the place of business. The process has evolved over time as the criteria have evolved over time. Just to give you an idea, when we first started this, we only gave out 1 award in each category, small, medium, large. We changed the categories over time. And the thought was, let the field set the height of the bar, and by doing so, people would compete harder to beat each other out. What we found over time, though, was that the difference between the winner and the second place finisher was very, very difficult to discern. So we then started to set the height of the bar, and then anybody that jumped over the bar would get a CARE award.
I like that. I like the fact that your awards have evolved.
They have absolutely
inclusive and not
evolved.
exclusive.
Very, very inclusive, yes.
We've also changed the application process a little bit, not only to reflect different criteria, because what benefits were important in 1992 may not be as important in 2018. So we've tried to reflect that. And the constant challenge, this has not changed over time, but the constant challenge is to make it rigorous enough so that it really means something, but not so rigorous that you discourage companies from applying because it takes too many of the resources away from the good things that we're trying to reward them for doing.
Right.
So that's been a challenge. And I guess we also didn't always have a survey. We introduced that relatively early on in the process, but we didn't always have that. And then this year we did introduce the importance of community involvement, just because we could see that was a key differentiator between caring companies and companies that didn't meet that criterion. And we're already thinking about what other criteria we're going to start to introduce as we go forward. We've talked about diversity and inclusion as an important part of evaluating a company, but the key is to let companies know ahead of time that this is what we're going to be looking for, so it creates a fair, even playing field, and companies can respond accordingly.
You know, that's very interesting too, because there are things that companies can do voluntarily, because we talked a little bit before the show about the fact that there are things that aren't mandated in this country that are in other countries. And so when you look at things like paid family leave, some companies provide that. Nobody has to provide that at this point. So looking at things like that, I sit on the board of Equality Virginia. We don't have non-discrimination protections for LGBT employees in employment. So looking at things like that. So I personally have a wish list this long of things I'd love to see companies do because they're not being required to do them. I mean, going along, do you see things evolving down the road?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a requirement, and I think that the best leaders in this region, in this country, recognize that we have to continue to evolve. You don't just do what's mandated; you do what's right. And these are the leaders who are taking action to do what is right on behalf of their employees. Absolutely.
I think the importance is that the CARE award is something that is achievable. I mean, it's something that you just don't roll out of bed and win the CARE Award. But it needs to be something that hopefully the majority of companies eventually will find is within their grasp. I mean, we'd be delighted if we honored 75 companies every ceremony.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
It would be amazing, yeah.
It would be, and one of the things that we hear from the companies who go through the process, because not everybody makes it all the way through, but even those who do, they value the process. So this award really is for them. It's a process of self-reflection, getting their team together, looking at themselves, asking questions, and we, as part of our process, we offer the opportunity to sit with a coach and a mentor to really have those reflection conversations. And it's been incredibly valuable. Some folks that don't make it through the round the first time might come back the next year and try again. So in terms of how do we get to that next level, how do we do right by our employees, how do we make decisions that are right, not just required, there really is that iterative process that happens.
And that was one of the objectives of the CARE Award in the first place, is to give other companies an idea about what the winning companies are doing. I've found it very enlightening and uplifting is the word I was looking for, to find the willingness of companies to share some of their best practices with other companies. I mean, they're obviously not giving away all of their trade secrets that are helping them attract and retain, but they're so willing to share that they really like to show off what they're doing for their employees. Sure. And then you sit in a ballroom with 300, 350 people that are listening to these stories and hearing what these companies are doing and how it has contributed to their success. And the idea is that the word will spread and more companies will say, wait, I do that. We do that, or we could do that.
Right.
And then they pick up on that, and then the next thing you know, they're up on the podium the following year accepting an award.
And that's what's so exciting about the event itself, because it really is the culmination of this incredible process. Every leader in that room is inspirational, they're aspirational, and you walk out and you can't wait to get back to your team and say, hey, did you think about this? And I heard about that, and this is really great. We should try that. And it's an incredible morning.
It sounds like an enormous team building exercise among business leaders and their employees and their staff. It's like, look what we did. And let's share what we did, because a rising tide lifts all boats, and that would be the other thing I would say about a business community that is thriving the way we were fortunate in the greater DC, Fairfax County area, that we do have a lot of wonderful businesses. Right. And then when you set a standard, everybody benefits. Your employees,
Absolutely.
the employees at the companies that you work with, people within a community who enjoy what they do, who are proud of the company they work for. Your best recruiting tool, seriously, are the employees who work for you. Like, if you want to find other fabulous employees, have your employees love what they do and where they work and who they work for.
Exactly. And in this labor market, I mean, it's not going to be a tight labor market forever, but it is now. So I think companies realize that the more they can do to make sure that the people that they have not are going to stay with them forever. I mean, nobody expects a job for life anymore.
Not anymore.
But to make sure that while they're there, employees are as engaged as possible, and they're doing the most that they can to make the company productive and successful. That's what I think these companies are going for. And then when those employees do eventually leave, they will take with them these thoughts to their next company and say, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And those smart employers will listen to those voices and start to assimilate some of those programs into their culture.
So what can we expect at this event, which is November 8th at 7:30 a.m. in the morning? So it's going to be a gigantic room, coffee at the Sheraton Premier, bright and early, but there's plenty of parking there.
Yes.
Yep.
So what can we expect in the room? How does this whole event unfold?
Absolutely. So networking is a big part of the event. When you have all these incredible people in a room together, we want to make sure there's time to get to know each other and talk and share information. We will be honoring 23 award winners this year. One company, National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, has been winning. It's their 13th year, which is incredible. And we have two 10-time winners, Consumer Technology Association and Custom Inc., and then 20 other incredible organizations, some first-time winners, some multi-year winners. So come out and you can see on our website who all the winners are. But it's an incredible group of people. We have a great panel set up.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about community engagement, sharing community engagement practices, best practices, Charles Kuhn, with the President and CEO of JK Moving, will be on the panel, and Sheila Murphy, the founder and partner of Flex Professionals, and Darcy Smith, Senior Vice President of Team Development at Custom Inc. So really dynamic, really excited. Going to be moderated by Michael Niebauer from Washington Business Journal. So it should be a great morning.
It should. And the energy in the room is
Yeah, it's
just
fantastic.
it's so it's so high when you hear these companies' names get, even though they know they're winning. It's not a surprise.
Right.
The morning of the event. They know they won. But you just see this table full of people stand up and cheer. They're so
pride.
proud of what they have accomplished because it really is significant. So it's a great event. It's a great event.
No, I can imagine that the panel too will have a lot of best practices to share. So in addition, I love the fact that you've got a panel in addition to just giving out the awards. It's kind of like we're giving the awards because everybody's great, but the panel kind of says, well, here's one aspect of sort of a common thread that all of these award winners have embraced or share.
And the panel is designed intentionally to ensure that we're hitting the different sectors and different industries and different size corporations, because we all have a lot to learn from each other. So we really try to diversify who's in the room, and as George talked about earlier, the award itself spreads across a pretty diverse sector of corporations in the region.
Right, and it's reflective of the fact that it's been a challenge for us actually to try to adapt our criteria to different types of companies, especially companies in an emerging gig economy. How do you honor them and recognize the work that they're doing within their company structure that we think adds up to being a caring company. So it's really fun. It's exciting for us to keep up with the changing nature of the business community, and I think the panel, as Stephanie pointed out, is a great example of the diversity of companies that really can be a caring company.
This is going to be fascinating as time goes on, and I'm assuming, when do you start the applications? Don't want to get ahead of myself, but for next year. So this awards breakfast is November 8th. When do you start the process for the following group of awardees?
So you can reach out anytime, and we'd be happy to have a conversation. The applications become available in March of 2019.
March of 2019.
Right around the corner.
It starts all over again.
I know, right? But it gives some, it's aspirational. It's aspirational.
It
really
is.
is.
Thanks, both of you, so much. Stephanie, George, this has been illuminating for me. And I hope it's been illuminating for all of our viewers at home to understand what the CARE Awards are and how they are raising up the visibility of companies who are doing good while they are doing well. And that is what you need to know.